Assalamu alaikum and a very good evening to everyone who's present here to attend today's session. It's been a pleasure to have you all on board today for the Soft Skill Webinar Series Phase 2, Session 3. Today's topic is communication strategies. I see that people have started joining in the session, and so let's wait for a few more minutes so that more people can join us before we go live today, inshallah. And so in the meantime, I would like to share about AMP by running through a small presentation. I request you all to please have a glance on the presentation as we wait on. Welcome to AMP Webtalk. AMP stands for Association of Muslim Professionals and is registered in India, USA, UK, and Australia as a non-profit organization. AMP has completed its 12 years of serving a community in the various fields such as education, employment, and empowerment. AMP has a vision to positively impact life of 10 million people by the year 2030. To empower Muslims for the greater benefit of the society in general and nation as a whole is our mission. AMP's vision is to be a model Muslim community which is educationally advanced, socially progressive, culturally vibrant, politically influential, and economically dynamic. So what AMP has achieved in these 12 years is right in front of you in this slide. Please have a look at it. We got school development programs in this project. We conduct various useful lectures and educational sessions in schools. We also have employment assistance cell where we organize job fairs and job drives. AMP has got its resource center where we got more than 600 counselors who are dedicated helping students and youth in their career path. We also do awards and partnerships with different companies and training partners. Besides all the above said achievements, AMP's present today is in front of you. AMP got more than 100 plus active chapters. We are present in 25 states and 16 countries with more than 6,000 active members and volunteers. AMP's online presence is through various social media platforms where more than 125,000 professionals are connected to us. If you are willing to be a part of AMP and its community work, you can join us at www.ampindia.org/joinamp. All right, so now let's quickly move on to the session. And I see that a lot of people have already joined us. I would like to welcome everyone on behalf of AMP. I'm your host today, and my name is Humaira Kabir. I'm working as Operations Manager at AMP USA. Along with me, we have Mr. Mohammad Shansha Ansari, who's the President of AMP USA from Columbus. I would like to introduce you all to the speaker of today's session, Mr. Shah Siddiqui Saab, who's the CEO of Reed Academy. Mr. Shah Siddiqui is a career coach, training consultant, and a management faculty with more than 2 decades of experience in management sciences with extensive experience in finance management, strategic planning, information security, and Islamic finance. We also have with us Mr. Saeed Saab, who is the Director of Technology at Swift E-Learning Services. Now, before I hand over to Mr. Shah Saab, I will request everyone to please utilize your time by carefully listening to the speaker. If you have any questions, you can ask using Q&A section that is underneath your Zoom window. Questions must be very specific to the topic. We will have a 15 to 20 minutes question and answer round after the speaker is done with their lecture. Over to you, Shah Saab. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Humaira. Very good evening to everyone. Thank you for joining us on this session today, Monday evening, as we begin our second phase of the web series. So I welcome you all, and today's topic is communication strategies. This is a sequel to what we have been doing last week. In fact, for those of you who had shown much interest in conversation and business writing, in general, English conversation and writing, I do appreciate your feedback and I do appreciate your interest in the topic. And then this is not the end of the communication or the conversation as we begin communication strategies today. So I'm calling it a sequel because there's a lot to be done here that will connect with our conversation topic and our writing. So English was the topic chosen to start off this series, second phase of the series. And I'm sure we all did our best in covering the topics. As mentioned to you all, this is a lifelong journey. And then I laid emphasis on English speaking being a business language and the language of internet and the language of entertainment and the language of technology that we discussed in our slides. I would like to continue and then be strategic when it comes to learning the language and when it comes to speaking English as a second language and when it comes to improving your writing skills. So the strategy remains the same. As you all remember, I said to drop everything to speaking English or drop everything to English speaking. And that can continue if you all are on a course or on a quest to get on English. And we talked about some tips during the slides that will be used up as we move on during this series. So we do have a theme that's going on in this second phase after the tools that you all learned in the last phase a few months ago. To all, you will also see and appreciate how we can connect with all those topics that were taken at the start. And as we move up, you will graduate, in the areas of soft skills and be able to practice and also propagate. I had a few questions before I begin the session. The slides, I would like to inform you guys to please discuss your queries with regards to the LMS with Mr. Saeed towards the end of the session. In fact, after my question part is done, you can continue with your LMS questionnaire. And then as far as the slides are concerned, as far as the literature is concerned, especially for the communication aspect of it, we have the e-module, which is a video show for about an hour that will cover everything that we have that we would discuss in the slides. And this is more of in the type of slang that you need, more of with the idioms and the required grammar, and most importantly, the pronunciation that I was laying emphasis on. So it's very easy for you all to grasp, the words that are mentioned in the slides, and then to maybe, if difficult, imitate it, because imitation, they say, is the best form of flattery. So that's one way of learning these words, imitation. And then the other way of looking at it is faking till you're making it. So there are different aspects of English conversation that we talked about, and I think we had everything covered in the facts part of the module. So that was about the slides. That you don't require the slides to learn anything. You only require it when it comes to presenting yourself. But you do need to read a lot. Okay, and then we stressed on the importance of reading, where the power and the force will be with you. So with those things in mind, we will move on. And to brush up on the topics from last week, we had in English, conversation, some tools that a toolkit actually, and then that was not to be compared with the writing aspect. So our holistic approach, our traditional, less traditional approach, I should say, should be for you all to look at those grammatical tenses that we talked about and so forth, but try not to be too much, confused with that, if that is the case, and then move on. So there are different ways of getting into English conversation, and we talked about how we can learn from reading, how we can learn from certain videos, how we can learn from the movies. So with that, you would move on. And then it is not to say that writing and conversation is not connected, but it is, as well as it's a totally different area. So you would get a grip on your conversation while at the same time try to learn on writing. So imitation works in writing also. When you run into a sentence, you can definitely learn from it. That's one way of learning the grammar. So if you already know how to convert, then going back to the basics might confuse you. So you would just move on and learn as you require. So we talked about the grammatical tense and the tools, the punctuation, the exclamations, and we stressed on the slang, and then how we would also try to use idioms. And then the pronunciation is where you will really have to pay more attention. So that was English communication. And then for those of you who really enjoyed it, that's not the end of it, as we would continue on in our communication strategy. So everything that you learn, we will move on along with that. So let's talk about the communication aspect of this series. And this will continue for today and tomorrow, and some related topics will follow. So with that, grammar and writing, ongoing, as you begin your journey into grammar, conversation, and writing, which will continue, you will add to it your communication strategies. And the strategy remains the same. Try to practice as much as you can. And for now, until the LMS is open, I would highly recommend you viewing the video and whatever literature is available for you to read every day, at least a few times, or at least once or more than once, so that you can get to the topics that are that are given in the module, that relate to in the videos, and the pronunciation. So as you all know, the conversation aspect of it, the modules, the videos especially, were made in North America. And for those of you who were asking, just so you all know, this is all the software that you see on this in this series, or anything that you see in the future, are all have been professionally developed, and all have this certain American accent, the slang that you need. And then these are very expensive. We talked about, I don't know if we talked about it, but these courseware, each individual module with all its accessories, the slides, and your manual, as well as the videos, retail for about $500 a course. And this is not to include our timing, our resources. This is not to include your LMS partners and the AMP time efforts and their man hours. So your return of investment is huge. I would encourage you all to please pay attention to the modules available on the LMS, because it would be there. It is there only for a week, and then after which it will end. So take this seriously, take your assessments, and learn as much as you can from here. Come up with your questions and continue your reading. Since your return on investment is infinite, as your investment is zero. So once again, I stress on you all to pay attention to the videos, not worry about the slides, and then get the best out of it. So with that, let's move on to our actual module for today and next week, on Wednesday. And we will begin with our communication slides. Most of you may be very familiar with the topic communication, and we're trying to be a bit strategic here with our slides, with our topic. So for those of you who know what communication is, then you would have to understand that this is to strategize your communication tool, or this is to strategize the way you communicate. And there's a lot in communication that we would cover, really a lot. And then we will also see some advanced communication, some methods of communication, various variations in communication. But if you think that communication is just speaking to somebody, and getting a message across the board, then you are to build on it, and then you are to expand on your version of communication. So communication starts out, physically, and then it starts out physiologically, and then it starts out, psychologically. So there are different aspects of communication that we will discuss here. But if you think communication is just talking, then you're mistaken, and we'll try to pay attention here so as you all can be effective communicators. So anything that we do today is communication. As you see me delivering a speech and you receiving at the other end is communication. It could be communication to the masses. I'm speaking here at the end as a source, and you are receiving. But then it also means a lot other than what I'm saying. There's something else that's involved, like, the visuals, the technology, the noises that you hear. So if there is anything that you are doing, listening, and then a noise in the background and some obstacles, and then you're trying to pay attention, and then your facial expressions and your gestures with a specific part of your body, and then as well as how you respond back to whoever is trying to approach you, in addition to the look that you give out to other people, okay? And then your tone, how angry you are, or how, anxious you are, including anything in the area that you pay attention to, including your pet, is all a part of communication. So we'll try to strategize our communication topic today with as much variations as possible, with as much, deviance as possible in the aspect of communication. Because there are various cases that talk about the business aspect of communication. It is to see how the various industries take communication. And if you were to have an audit conducted on your organization, and if you were to have an audit conducted, let's say at a bank that you're working for, chances are, the audit will come out with, a big deficiency in the area of communication. So communication has been very, very, in shortage. So organizational aspect tells us that communication is always, shorthanded. It's always short chain. And we'll look at why this is, okay? And if you look at a specific sector like, say, IT, the IT professionals are all worried about their technical skills, and they do deliver the technical skill, but at the end, when they get to the aspect of understanding why there is, a difference in the productivity, or why there is a difference in, the result as opposed to what the sales have predicted, then it comes out that it is always communication. They're able to communicate well technically. However, the interpersonal relationship among, the groups and the levels of employees is always behind. So this is just an example of how communication, will matter in an organizational setting. And we'll also see how we would play with the emotions, to come out as an effective message and to be, effective in communication. So when I talk about emotions, I'm sure this rings a bell, and you may have been thinking where we have learned so much about emotions in the soft skills topics, and you may have guessed it right. Emotions intelligence is what we talked about. So we'll see at how emotional intelligence is a component of effective communication. This is towards the very advanced topics in communication, maybe in our next session. And then it also talks about how effective communication, impacts your life, impacts your personal life. So in stress management, as you all can refer back to, we talked about different, different secretions of adrenal to different hormones. And then this is also, once again, connected with your communication. So if your communication skills are poor and you feel that you lack, the needed communication, then you're in stress. So we all will also connect with stress management here, as well as our first topic of the session of the series, which was time. Okay, so you'd be able to appreciate how we all can, relate to each and every module that we have been going through, and how this helps. So there are some serious implications in addition to the levels of stress. A lot of mishaps in life are due to ineffective or miscommunication. It seems that a huge number of marriages fail due to the lack of communication. I'm sure you all agree to it, but it's a huge in maybe North America, 90% over, but it may not be so high. And then you would also look at how, due to the lack of communication, you didn't have a business transaction or a business project delivered on time. So there are many times communication that lacks. We may not realize it, we may not think about it that way, but at least for now on, I want you all to think of how communication will, impact your life, and how it did impact in the future, and how, you can improvise it. So I want you all to start out, this topic today with a little pre-assignment. Most of my workshops come with a pre-assignment, so you all can, check on yourself post-assignment, and then post-delivery as to how much of a difference it helped. And one way of having a communication, done in a systematic manner is to check and see what we missed in the past, and then how you could overcome those hurdles in communication during the course. Because the various topics that we will run into will tell you that, well, if I knew about this topic, I could have handled this differently. Okay, so how you could be the recipient, of a different situation, and how you could have handled it. So we will start out today with a pre-assignment, like we always do, or we may not have, but in this case especially, because I want you all to think of a situation where you may have lost on something big time, a business transaction, okay, or getting a prized, possession, or maybe you may have lost big time on your life partner, or, a project delivered, or a free ticket or something, because of your inability to speak well, or your inability to speak well, or your shy behavior that prompted you not to speak for the various reasons as to what the room full of people will think. So with this pre-assignment, I want you all to think of a situation where you may have lost something, and then write it down in your journal and see how you could relate to this situation during the course. Anytime it clicks, you can make a note of it. Anytime it comes up, you can make a note of it, bring it up, with me, time permitting, or, in general. And then it's always better to have a buddy system in communication strategies, where you can also check on the different modes and aspects of communication. We'll be talking about your pitch, your volume, your emotions, to always have a cross-check. So it's always good to have, interactive section to build on your communication. But everything that you need on the communication aspect of being an effective will be dealt with in the 2-day session that we have, hopefully. And then this is for you all to make a note of it, how you can improve your communication. So your speaking ability, your vocabulary, your slang, your accent, and your effective communication skills include your writing skills. Okay, that makes you a complete communicator, communicaro. This is a word derived from Greek and Latin, which relates to, movement, which relates to anything between what you do and what the other person sees. That doesn't have to be verbal. It could be gestures, it could be nonverbal, it could be signs, and it could just be a stare that you're looking at somebody. Okay, this all relates to communication. And for you to be an effective communicator, or a strong conversationalist, as they call it, or a business professional, you would have to be able to speak well, with the right tone, deliver it, and at the same time be able to be reciprocating, like understanding the language coming from the other end, turning the tables and being a listener, and in the end be able to write what you say or put your words in action. So this would be a complete package when it comes to being a business professional. Now, we've named it business writing, and this is basically, communication strategies utilized in the world of business. All right, so with that, let's move on with our modules that we have here, and then we'll have time once again for question and answers. All right, so we talked about, the basic, intro. And what we plan to achieve today is establish common grounds, identify barriers, verbal and non-verbal, actively listen. In addition to which, I have always, some customized relating to business cases, relating to my audience that is not spelled out here. But we will take a look at how to ask questions, how to be able to initiate a conversation. This is very important. This is the most important part of the most important strategy, and how you would be able to relate to your own skills and bring it up into your communication strategy. How to be a passive listener, how to get 100% out of a communication, and some various theories. And then we'll try to, in the end, relate to our topics in soft skills that we discussed in the past, in addition to everything that you see in here on the screen. So, you know, the big picture is what I'm saying here. Communication is not just what you're talking about or what you're trying to understand, what you're listening. Okay, it means a lot. For the hearing impaired, what does communication mean? You might think of a sign language. And for a person who's not able to see, how would you communicate with him? It's, you know, the Braille technology. And then in addition to which, there are other areas where communication is difficult. We're not too much worried about it because we're only worried about in our system where we do business communication in English. But what if there is a person with who doesn't speak your language? What if there is a person who is in a different time zone? What if there is a person who speaks the same language, but he has a different dialect? So all these things will come under communication. However, we're only concerned about how we can best communicate in a given language, in a given organizational settings, you know, with a given strategy, and to achieve a common purpose and to achieve a common goal. So this is the simplest aspect of communication, where you would have to, once again, master every skill that we have and then move on. So this is about the big picture. It's defined as an interchange of thoughts, okay, a speech that includes verbal, paraverbal, and nonverbal, sign language, and of course, presenting it in the form of a document. When it comes to writing, we touched a little bit about proposal writing, but these are the topics to be built on. So I don't know how much of a writing that we would be able to talk about today or tomorrow or on Wednesday, but however, we did enough about writing. So there are different ways of communicating, and you can see the most common ways here is verbal and paraverbal, okay? Verbal is simply what you're saying, and paraverbal is something in between verbal and your sign language or your body language. Okay, this is your tone, speed, pitch, and volume, okay? So when somebody is communicating, you know, this is to know that his communication is less effective based on, you know, what he's saying, in addition to his poor paraverbal skills, which means that if he doesn't have the right tone, then the communication can be miscommunicated. If he doesn't have the speed, if he's too fast, then you might think that, you know, he's in a hurry. That's known as hurried communication. If his pitch, you know, is not very clear, if its pitch is, you know, up and down, then you would know there is a problem. And if he's speaking too loud, then, you know, the volume is, you know, so high that you're bothered. But all of these will impact negatively, provided you have, you know, a good blend of everything. Now, you may have heard from some people that your tone is not correct or your tone is not good. So what does it mean? It means that it's being negatively impacted. Not every person will tell you in business that your tone is, you know, not what should I say, not friendly. And same is the case with your speed and pitch. So if somebody's talking very slow, then you can't, okay? If there is a person who's speaking your language as a second language or, you know, a beginner, then you will need a lot of patience. So if a person is speaking very slowly, like if he's talking very slowly, like say, my aspect of doing is, then, you know, you get bored, something like this. So this is, once again, to know that your tone, speed, and pitch are of importance. And then if you all can remember, the speed, pitch, volume, tone was somehow dealing with emotions in the past that we talked about. So when it comes to self-assessment, you know, this is where you would assess speed, pitch, and volume. Self-assessment, self-regulation, and self-control was the three major topics we talked about in emotional intelligence. So this is your connection with how you can be emotionally aware, you know, emotionally intelligent, because that's learnable. That's a learnable skill, and how that helps you being an effective communicator. So this is how we communicate. And other factors in communication is the method, mass, audience. Method is face-to-face, okay, like how you would discuss something about business at your workplace. And then the other method would be like me delivering over the internet, and then fax, and then telephone, and then it goes on. There are different ways of communication, and these matter when there are barriers. When there is a time difference, you would have to think of how, this might not be the right time to talk. And then when there is barriers to technology, poor internet, or whatever you want to call, how this will impact your communication, your mode of communication, or how effective your communication would be. Same is the case with mass. It's one-on-one or to many people, and then the type of audience that you have. This would be the other factors in communication. That's about a basic, and then we'll take a look at this case on a presentation for a meeting through this video. All right, we'll get to it. This is a big picture that this module is talking about. This is a bit difficult, but it is very important, and it has a lot of information in there. If you can look at it, I'm going to read out just a few things as to how to connect with people. There are a lot of tricks here given out, how it matters, and how a person will think that you are listening, as opposed to how your message is delivered as something interesting. If you look at the bottom, the questions that do not break ice and the questions that break ice are here on the right-hand side. So this is how to connect with people, how to come up with a conversation, and how to, initiate a conversation at a basic level, and so forth. We talked about commonalities last time. We talked about small talk, and we talked about how you would find something similar, common ground. So these are the tools that you use in communication to make it more effective and insightful. So we will discuss this at length in the future. How would you initiate a conversation with a stranger? Is it difficult? No, it's not difficult. But is that encouraged? Is that something that you would do? Well, it depends on the culture. Do you speak with strangers? No. If you don't, then that is a serious obstruction, or a serious hindrance to your communication skills. How would you initiate a communication, or how would you initiate a conversation with a stranger? Well, in business, you're looking at networking. So you would have to break the ice. You have to jump into a big group, sometimes, very senior people. But then what they look at now is your ability to communicate, your ability to present. So these are the topics that's given here. And as we go through this session, we will see how some of these little traits, some of these little strategies will help you in breaking the ice, in starting a conversation. You may be technically savvy, you may be very strong in your technical skills, but if you cannot initiate a conversation, then you're stuck on a corporate ladder. There is a topic from a specialist to a manager, where you have to learn how you would be able to talk and how you would be able to connect using your small talk, how you would be able to connect to different areas to network, different markets and different individuals. So this is, what the big picture is about. Towards the end, you would be learning how to, be positive in a conversation, and how to be able to even take the negatives from the other side, which are known as precipitating factors. Okay, when people try to dump their emotions on you. So in conversation, there is usually a person who's trying to say something, and if the other person is also trying to do the same something, then the effective communication is lost. So we would have to balance this, and we'll try to cover this too. So I'm going to read this out loud. Some common questions to break the ice. The first one is, have you heard of this new technology? What are you excited about lately? I read that you work, in the so-and-so area. So these are not, these are the right ways of breaking the ice. Wrong questions would be, or ineffective or less productive questions will be, where are you from? This is something simple. In fact, you would never ask a person, where are you from? And then what nationality you are, even though you may be looking like you're from somewhere remote, but you never ask them. So these are, some tricks of the trade. Let's move on. Well, we just talked about how it might not be right to start a conversation with a stranger, but once again, that's cultural, okay? So for your conversation aspect, for your writing aspect, for your cultural aspect, you can use the saying here where imitation is the highest form of flattery. You can just imitate as you have to learn and move on. So if you happen to be in a different market, you just have to imitate the way they do it and move on. And this is commonly seen when people change jobs, when people change cultures, people change geographical areas, settings that they are in. This is a video on the big picture.
Boris and Ling were working on a presentation for an important business meeting the next day. Boris was set to present, but had doubts about his communication skills as he lacked confidence in this area. Ling suggested they work on effective communication strategies to better his skills. Boris agreed, and together they discussed and prepared the 3 methods of communication: verbal, nonverbal, and written. By the end of the day, Boris and Ling were confident that their written presentation, nonverbal presentation, and verbal skills were on par for the presentation. Boris was overjoyed that he was prepared for the event, and Ling was happy that her suggestion could be of help in the professional situation.
All right, so when you have a presentation, you might need some help. Most of you may be well-versed in this presentation, but if you have presentations, then it's always better to have some help. And throughout your communication journey, it's better to have a partner at work, at home or wherever you can, so that you can gauge your communication skills as you move on. Now, remember, communication gets done very easily, effectively with the usage of technology. So if you have to do a long presentation, there are ways of taking a breath, have a breath of air, with the technology. Now you can imagine how presentations would have been before, the coming of the slides or the PowerPoint presentations, as an example. Now, we used to do presentations before even the PowerPoints came in. And now these presentations were raw. They didn't have the effects. They didn't have the music. Now we do have the videos in the slides. So, presentation is one aspect of communication where you are using advanced techniques. You are utilizing, communication strategies that we will discuss. But everyone who's trying to be big on communication would have to be able to do presentation skills. For many a time, a lot of people would like to do presentation skills. So you just have to jump in and be able to present, no matter how much help you would require, no matter how many times you would fail. Presentation is one area where you can say that you are at the forefront of communication. And without your communication strategy, without your communication skills, you are a nobody in the corporate settings. Okay, so for now, forget your technical skills, forget your hard skills. In fact, I said it to have come with an open mind where you have to assume that your technical skills are zero. You are a nobody, and that's how you will gain on your soft skills. I think the review questions, we're going to have to skip. There's quite a few, and we'll start out by understanding communication barriers. Communication is very, very complicated. Communication is very, very, disrupting due to these barriers. So from a physics standpoint, communication has many barriers. You may remember seeing the simple sketch where there is the source and then a sender and there is a receiver. Okay, the message gets communicated, regardless of the method, whether it's person to person or, on media, or you listening to music, or even watching television. Communication always, gets disrupted due to barriers. Okay. And in electronic communication, there are techno barriers where the message is modulated, and demodulated. And then there is always the security aspect of communication. At the highest level, a message is encrypted, okay, using different methods. And then at the receiving end, it's decrypted, okay. And there are, to add more confusion, man in the middle, there are people who are trying to take a peek, or hackers, or crypto analysts, as you can call it. So there are all kinds of barriers, obstructions, when it comes to a simple communication message. And we have all types of technological solutions to handle that. But coming back at our basic level, there are barriers for communication. Many a times, a simple message that you say about doing something, in a certain setting at a certain time is miscommunicated, and it's done at the wrong time or at the wrong location. So this is of value to us in a business, from business standpoint. We don't want any miscommunication in business. This is the basic aspect of communication strategies, to utilize the right strategies, to avoid any mishaps in business, and to get the message across clear. So we start out from a basic message to a message that's encrypted. So what are these barriers is what we will look at now. Common barriers, common walls, common abstractions, language, culture, location. I'm sure you all can relate to this. There's a big barrier in language, but we can overcome it, because we're not, this is not going to be a permanent barrier. Now, for those of you who are temporarily visiting a new place, a new country, a new organization on a short term, you can live by it. And then for those of you who are going there for the long haul, then it's not very difficult to learn a new language. You can imagine how people learn English so quickly, okay? So, when we talked about English conversation, I said that, you would have to speak English worthy of you or your region. Or if you're coming from India, South Asia, then your English have to be near perfect or near native. So coming from India is not an excuse, although many people take it as an excuse. And in other lands, people don't know that you speak English or something else in your home country. So we don't have to at least worry about speaking English. Since this seminar, this web talk is in English, I'm sure everyone's getting most of it, across. And if you speak English, and if you speak it well, then you can manage it anywhere in the world. And then English is gaining prominence. But if you are somebody who speaks only Spanish, or only Italian, okay, or only German, then remember that's an international language, okay? But still there are very few people who speak this language. And there are very few people who can communicate in this language. And then they are actually at the risk of losing, whatever their goals are when it comes to not speaking English language. So with that, you can say that you have, overcome this common barrier, which is language. Culture, it's very easy, very simple to handle the cultural barrier, where you can learn it very, very, very easily. There might be difference in cultures within a region. There might be difference in cultures, huge difference between countries. But, with the internet age we are in, it's very, very easy to overcome the cultural barrier. Location, well, it's very easy. You know what time it is in the other country that you're trying to call, and you want to make sure you don't call in the middle of the night, or you don't call very early in the morning, because that will impact your ability to communicate. Okay, if you call at the right time, and if you think the other person is dismooded or being cranky, then you'd have to answer yourself. Ask yourself, why is he cranky? It's because of the location. So these are very common barriers, okay? Language, we talked about it, you can overcome that, okay? Whether it's a different language, or whether it's your second language, or whether it's a different dialect. But to prosper in business and to achieve, what you plan what your goal is as a leader to have the highest impact on your team, on your employees, and to reach the topmost managerial position in the company, you do have to speak well, of course, English, and you do have to write well. And we talked about this in conversation. We took the examples of Apple and Microsoft, how they would have achieved, how their CEOs had achieved this position, but for their English skills. If they were technically strong, they would have been still there, not fired, but they would never have become the CEOs of the organization. So this is a simple truth. And then if you can believe in this, then you have to drop everything to English speaking. So cultural barriers for somebody who's at a beginner level. You guys we're always ahead of this. Differences in time and place. That's simple. It's best always to utilize tools like email or your WhatsApp message, because the email is an every time, every day, every place bridge, and you wouldn't be able to know, how well the other person converses, or other person wouldn't be able to know how well you converse in an email. All right, there is a case here relating to logistics. Let's hear this quickly.
Victor and Brianna were discussing their ideas for solving a particularly difficult logistics problem at work. Unfortunately, they were struggling to communicate their thoughts and differences with each other. Victor suggested they identify their communication barriers in order to resolve their differences and move towards a solution for their problem. Brianna agreed, and together they discussed the barriers withholding them from properly communicating with each other. In the end, it boiled down to a lack of time to communicate effectively. Brianna rescheduled a suitable time with Victor to communicate on the project, and they were both satisfied that they could now move towards problem resolution in a new time slot.
All right, that was one communication barrier handled. And remember, difference in culture, difference in location, and difference in language relating to dialect or different language. It can all be overcome by, planning ahead, by trying to adapt, by trying to relay. All right, so we talked about verbal communication. Let's take a look at what para-verbal communication is, okay? This is how you would add to your message of getting, the message across using the similar verbal communication skill, the para-verbal. So here, if you look at these three sentences, it's the same sentence, but the emphasis is on I, say, and wrong. So if you look at this sentence, I didn't say you were wrong. And if the emphasis is on I, if you stress on I with a pitch or a tone, or if you gesture that I didn't say you were wrong, that means that you're trying to not take the blame, okay? It's somebody else who said that. And here, as you can see, say is underlined. I didn't say you were wrong. So here you're trying to emphasize that I didn't mean you were wrong. I didn't say that, okay? It was me, but I didn't, I didn't say you were wrong in the sense that you are probably not wrong. I wasn't clear on that. I wasn't specific on that. And then when the emphasis is on wrong, when here you're trying to say that it's neither me or my clarity, but I know you're not wrong, okay? And I said something else. I didn't use the word wrong. So this is how, the communication changes. And this is how your tone or your pitch or your emotions can matter. So what this means is when you are being at the receiving end, it is also for you to understand what the language of communication is, in the sense how paraverbally you are getting the message. If the tone is high, then it means something. If the pitch is, low, then it means something. If the volume is high, it means something. And it also adds to your expression, and your body language. So the power of pitch, is it supposed to have a low pitch or a high pitch? Well, low is better or moderate is better as opposed to high. Because if your pitch is high, you are not well. That's what it would sound like. And if you have your hands crossed, it means something. And then if you're sitting relaxed like this, it means something. And if you have a bent over, hunched posture, then you are depressed, or you're not, in a happy mood, or you're confused. So these are, the ways a message gets delivered. However, it is a person, who's at the receiving end, will have to pay attention and add to the message. So the word will also talk about what the word is, above and below. Like how you read between the lines in English reading, how you hear, the unsound or the unspoken is the way you would get the message based on the pitch and your expressions. So if a person is walking past you and if he says hello to you and his pitch is low, he says hello, and his eyes are closed, and he's walking very tired, that means that he needs to go home. You may not want to talk to him further, or you may not start a conversation with him. So this is an example. So it's better to have a moderate low pitch as opposed to a high. The truth about the tone, try lowering the pitch of your voice a bit. So it's better to be on a lower side. Lower means more serious. If you're trying to explain somebody in a low voice and then paying attention and with all your expressions, with all, with your eye contact, then obviously the person is paying attention. Okay. I hope I'm not too loud on the system here, because I feel I'm loud with the fear that I may not get across. Okay. So let me know how my pitch was today in your Q&A sessions. Smile, of course, it means a lot. You're getting the message across. And then both at the receiving end and at the source, if the smile exists, then there is a sign of the message being communicated in a warm manner, or conversation being prolonged, communication being extended. And then your posture, how you would sit and listen. And then your dialogues is what you would monitor, your inner monologue, yourself, way you would further your dialogue, how your dialogues move within your own self is what you would have to monitor. So this is so much about the tone. This is as an aspect of para-verbal communication. There's a lot in here in each sentence that you would have to build on your own. The strength of speed, is that good to have speed? It has a tremendous effect, can make the listener feel anxious, communicates importance. So when it comes to speaking, do you speed talk, or do you speak fast, or do you speak slow? Like pace is what you would have to understand. Here it seems that a moderate pace seems natural, but it depends. If you need to get the message across over the phone, okay, or in an interview, or in a contest, then you would have to speak fast. My way of looking at it is you have to have the ability to speak fast, tone, pitch, and speed, the pace. The pace has to be there. Otherwise, you are not being productive, okay? But if you're very fast, then, it might be difficult, and the receiver might miss some of the message. But if you are able to have a pace, then you should also be able to moderate your pace. So it's how you speak. But one of the hallmarks of being a good conversationalist, or a communication personnel, or a communication professional, or a public relation professional, is to speak fast and talk fast, and then speed talk. So these are the tricks of the trade. Okay, well, if you can get to it, you can get to it. But as long as you are in a moderate pace and clear with your pronunciation and with your effect, then the message is being communicated. So these are the things that you have to work on as you move up, as you practice communication in your life. And for now, English communication, business writing, communication strategies is the most important aspect of your life, which we are covering now. And this is present in every business scenario. This is where, you know, your skills would be appreciated. This is where your presence would be highlighted. And this is what you would need to move on. You can survive without this, but if you want to prosper in life, this is what you would have to build on. So there's one more, you know, a bit on the English pitch. Take a look at it.
Jasmine was practicing her presentation for her research project with two colleagues, Omar and Jordan, as an audience. Omar and Jordan were struggling to pay attention. Jasmine soon grew frustrated and lost some confidence in her presentation skills. Jordan suggested they identify Jasmine's communication issue, and they soon worked out that Jasmine's presentation was informative. It was her speaking style which was the problem. Jasmine realized that she was speaking too slowly and was losing the interest of both Omar and Jordan as her audience. Jasmine tried speaking at a more moderate pace and caught their attention. All three went home soon after, and Jasmine was happy that she enlisted the help of her colleagues.
All right, so it's always the help that you need. The problem here was there are usually two ways of looking at it. One, you knowing the stuff. Number two, you know the stuff, but you can't deliver it, okay? And if a person can do it both together, then he's successful. But many a time, very, very bright professionals know the stuff, but they cannot present it, okay? Because that's a different ballpark, different ball game. And then getting to know both is important, and both of them are learnable. Of course, you have to work hard to know the stuff, and then you also have to learn how to deliver the stuff. So here, the presentation wasn't successful the first time because her speed was not engaging. So make sure your audience is always engaged. Get a feedback and, you know, get to them. But in any event, you cannot leave them, you know, for more than a few seconds or for more than, you know, a pause. So speed, moderate, and knowing the stuff, both are required here. How would you practice this? This is the way you would practice: in front of a mirror, take a pitch. You know, pitch is the most, sales pitch is what the most valuable aspect of business is. So you need to have a sales pitch. You should be able to pitch. You should be able to prepare. You should be prepared with your pitch. This is how you would move on. So for those of you who are still going to school, this is a chance for you to, you know, take the initiative to do all the presentations at school. For those of you who are at your workplace, whenever there is a presentation, jump in to get it so that you can learn it on job, so that you can at least put in efforts, you know, to get it. And remember, when you work hard, your efforts are appreciated, is much appreciated. So even though you may not be able to present it, but you will get it. So everyone learns it by practice. So here we're also talking about how you need to make a partner, you know, in communication, or believe in the buddy system, or have friends who would evaluate you. Or with the technology, you can do it yourself by just recording your voice and then move on.
Jan?
All right, well, we will go on to the next module, which is nonverbal communication. So here, communication is not just verbal, what you hear. It's not paraverbal, but it also is about body language. It's also about your expressions. It's also about how you frown, and also about how you say with a tone, and what you mean by another tone. So all these things will come together. And you have to also be able to understand how, when your message is delivered, you know, what the reaction of the receiver was. Not verbally, but non-verbally, okay? So effective communicators, what they do is they deliver the message with the right body language. And then once the message is clear, they will not let it go. They will try to read the body language of the receiver as to how the impact will be positively or on the other side. So this is when you get to nonverbal communication. What is nonverbal communication? Your body language, the way you nod your head, the way you shake your head, the way you are nervous, okay? The way you're scrawling, you make noises, okay? The way your heart beats. Of course, nobody will understand your heartbeat, but yeah. Now, there is a very famous study done by Mehrabian. Here, I just have the essence of the study, where this study says that anytime there is a message being communicated, by the way, the name of the study was Silent Messages. It's a very, very dramatic name, Silent Message. We hear that, okay? You may have run into some very interesting videos which end by the author trying to make it very, 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 very viral by saying a silent message. Okay, what does the silent message do? First of all, silent is derived from this study that you see on the screen, Mehrabian. And then here, the silent message says that every time a message is communicated, 7% is verbal, 38% is paraverbal, and 55% is body language. Do you all agree to this stats, especially over 50% being a body language? Well, if you don't have to. It's just what the study says. It might not apply into the world that we live in today. It might not apply to the organizational settings that you are in today. It might not apply to the location you are at today. But anyway, this is so you know that body language is of value in business communication, or in any message that's being communicated. Body language matters, okay? It may not be 55%, but even if it matters 25%, it makes sense for us to have the right body language, okay? Now, how would you get a grip on having the right body language? First of all, when you speak, say something with your body doing something. Don't be in a position where you are stiff and your mouth or your lips move, okay? So be relaxed, okay? Be relaxed. Try to stand, walk, whatever you can, okay? And of course, eye contact is very important. But then don't give out wrong impressions as to, keeping your eyes closed or, being in a very weak position and your expressions, down or your eyebrows raised. So this study only tells us that although body language may be very important, not as important as 55%, but what it tells us is you need to have a body language, the right body language, and you can learn it, okay, from the different videos that you can see on body language, how to have the right body language, okay. So body language is of value. There are some postures here that you can see, whether you should be standing or sitting, how your arms and legs should be, and how your facial expressions is, okay? If you have raised your eyebrows, or if you're trying to frown, or if you're doing this as opposed to this, then it all means something. So a yes is taken as a nod, okay? Nodding is more, once again, a foreign gesture. And then sometimes people move your head, and some people are known, or some specific communities are known for moving your head in a certain way, where it might mean a yes in their culture and a no in other culture. And then crossing your arms, crossing your legs, while you sit is also cultural, okay? But it does replay, crossing legs, sitting with your legs crossed means a relaxed position, but it may not be appropriate in many cultures. In many cultures, a teacher or a professor is very, very comfortably sitting on the table, a table in the classroom. Whereas in other cultures, sitting on a table is not appreciated because it's a matter of, it's more of a respectful being, thing. And sitting cross-legged also is different. So you suit your culture, you suit your business setting, but you try to have the right body language. Some gestures are here, if you can read it. What does nodding head means? Shaking head means no. Maybe is this. Shrugging shoulders, not sure. Crossed arms is defensive. So if somebody's calling you, if your supervisor or boss calls you into your office and saying that we need to talk about a project, and if he's having his arms crossed and looking at you seriously, then you are getting it different. You would think that this is going to be a tough meeting for me. Tapping hands or fingers, you're bored. Shaking index fingers, angry. Thumbs up, thumbs down. What if you drop a pen from your finger? What does it mean? That's a bad gesture. It means you didn't sleep well. There are some high and low power gestures, okay? So research suggests that, if you're trying to have, if you're having a broadened gesture, okay, that it means that you are in power. It's a high power pose. And then in actuality, it is how you feel. Sometimes people feel good. And then whenever you feel good, whenever you're happy, whenever you're anxious, there are hormones released. So that might help you, okay? If you need to stretch for 2 minutes in the office, which is recommended, you should do it, because this is a matter of, having a right position, a right gesture, whether it's a power or a low power. It will also stimulate your hormones linked to the power, okay? So be conscious, of your standing, how you're standing. And you don't want to be in a high power position in front of a person who's already in a high power position. So this is just to avoid, confusion. Video on nonverbal.
Cyan and Jennifer were tasked with running the food committee at the year-end company function. Usually, this wouldn't be a problem, but they were having trouble communicating because Cyan's nonverbal communication was viewed as being negative by Jennifer. Jennifer brought up this issue to Cyan, who immediately changed her posture and gestures and discussed her reasoning behind the nonverbal communication. She was upset with the lack of interest in the dip she organized and wasn't angry with Jennifer. In the end, Jennifer and Cyan were able to resolve their differences and were happy to complete the tasks that they were given whilst on the food committee together.
All right, so you need to have the right gesture and learn the right body languages and the right gestures with your specific body part. I think we'll try to do this last module. There is an acronym STAR. This helps you in having the right verbal aspect of your communication. This depends on how your message should be conveyed. So this is how you practice writing a paragraph. This the same way you would practice how you would deliver a conversation, or how you deliver, a pitch, or say you're asked to do a presentation, how you would be able to present based on these 4 acronyms. So STAR, where S stands for situation, task is what you have been given, action is what was done, and result is result. So this is, a methodology with the acronym STAR, very easy to remember, STAR, and how you would, propagate, task, with those in the given settings in the form of a communication. So this is just how you would practice writing. This is how you would practice communication. So if you want to be prepared for a pop-up presentation or for a pop-up talk, then make sure that you include all these 4 synonyms. Quick conversation, frame statements with STAR. Imagine it's a Friday. Think about what the highlight of your week was. So if somebody were to ask you, how was your weekend? Okay. Now you cannot just say that I did this one thing. You'd have to talk about it, with fluency, in a flow. And then this would have to include the situation, the task, and then the action and the result. You could start out by, having all these 4 factors in a situation that, well, I started my weekend with, a walk early in the morning, and I had to perform, a little chore for the get together we had over the weekend, for which I had to go to the market and buy these things. And I had to really get the recipe for this, for which I needed a specific, utensil, a specific recipe, a specific cooking utensil. And then I had to somehow, you'd have to talk it in the same thing. You have to manage and get the dish prepared. And then it turned out to be as it was expected. And then, it was enjoyed by all. So this would have to be your summary statement. And if you can think of the acronym STAR, you'd be able to complete it. Take it as a sales pitch that you can practice at home, and you can relate with your business transactions when it comes to delivering a statement, or, even a discussion, a part of discussion, or a presentation. All right, this is about a campaign slogan at their marketing firm.
Ken and Gina were discussing several ideas for a new campaign slogan at their advertising firm. The boss had asked them to complete the task, and they were feeling a great deal of pressure. They had issues communicating their ideas until Ken suggested they use the STAR acronym to get their respective messages across. Gina agreed, and together they worked on the situation, task, action, and result of their messages to communicate their ideas in a better way. Gina and Ken were happy when they completed their brainstorming session because the STAR acronym had allowed them to communicate several brilliant ideas for the new advertising campaign. These would surely impress the boss.
All right, so the STAR is a very simple acronym, but if you incorporate it in your business conversation, in your presentations, in your discussions, or even in your regular meetings, it will have an impact. But you need to practice, have those in your mind, and try to utilize everything that you did. So you have an introduction, an action, and then a closing. So I guess that's about it for today. I'm open for question and answers. Be sure to ask me relating to the modules, and we'll leave a few minutes towards the end for your LMS related concerns. I'm ready.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Shah Saab, for today's wonderful session. It was really informative and very easily understandable. So I'll quickly start with the questions now. So our first question is from Mushtaq Ahmed Sahab. He wants you to explain paraverbal. What is paraverbal?
Okay, anything that's not verbal, okay, anything that relates to nodding your head, okay, and then gestures with your hand, and then anything relating to your voice, okay, your volume, your pitch, and in general, your emotions. So anything that's not verbal, okay, is paraverbal, which means that not your words, but your pitch, your volume, your anxiousness, anything related to your style would be paraverbal. So according to the study, there is verbal, paraverbal, and body language, okay? So the study, silent messages, lays more emphasis on your body language. But that is also talks about how a percentage of your message is affected by paraverbal. So if you need to be communicating effectively, you need to have the right voice, okay, the right pitch, and the right speed. Don't go too fast or too slow. And with this, you can deliver your message effectively, okay? You need to have the right tone. But at the same time, you're not to, spoil your vocal cord, in such a way. So it's verbal, non-verbal, body language, and after verbal comes paraverbal, where you need to have the right volume, tone, and pitch. It's pretty clear. You should be on your video also. All right, next one.
Oh, okay. So next question is from Sahir Pirzadeh. How would you describe good or effective communication?
Well, one way to look at the end result or get a view of how your message was communicated is by being a good listener and also looking at the body language of the receiver upon the end of the conversation. Let's say you talked about giving a project to your teammate. You call him to the office and explain to him that why this project was not handled well or why this project should be given to you. And then the person takes the message and says, okay, I'll get it done, right? But the way he says, okay, I'll get it done, will tell you whether the message was effective or not. And let's say the employee leaves your office and upon her exit, his or her exit, he slams the door, okay? So there is a message in there. When he slams the door, you know that the message was not taken positively. So this is how you would analyze. You cannot just be a good speaker without analyzing how effectively your message was communicated. So the point is the message should be communicated. If I'm here at this end, if I'm trying to say something, I don't know how my message is being communicated. But by your expressions, by your feedback, I know that I can move on. But if I'm not being an effective communicator, then the communication would have to end. Next question.
Next question is from Amir Hodki. How should I make my communication more effective or balanced in a way?
Well, follow the rules that we have been talking about. Okay, have the right posture, right verbal communication, take care of the barriers, the right setting. And there are some other topics that we will discuss on Wednesday. So just make notes of whatever we're saying here or from your manual, and then follow those. That's what we're here for today. Next question.
Next question is from Asma Firdos. What are the barriers of communication?
Well, it was clear in the slide. One is a language barrier. The other one is a culture barrier. The third one is a location barrier. And there are some disturbances in there. Once you speak English, if it's the same language, then there are some dialect related barriers. If you're speaking to a person from, say, for example, a certain English location in an English speaking country, you cannot understand his English. That's a barrier. And he cannot understand your English, although both of you are speaking English. So these are the barriers that you would have to overcome.
All right. So the next question is, Assalamu alaikum, sir. What are the necessary things to remember during the telephonic interview?
Well, there is one module on telephonic etiquettes of telephonic conversation. You have to check that out and then do it. But it's nothing major. You just have to be the way you are. You have to start out with greetings and then a small talk. Don't jump into. And depending on the interviewer's questions is how you would respond. And you try to understand from his tone, pitch, and volume how he's feeling, what he wants. Try to find some commonalities. But there are etiquettes of telephonic conversation that you have to check out. I think we will cover that in our Wednesday session, a little bit about how to ask questions or interviewing skills, telephonic interviewing skills. Next.
All right. So the next question is from Sabiullah Noor Muhammad. How to use fillers in the effective communication?
Fillers is the topic that we will discuss on Wednesday. Okay, so it's too early for you to talk about it now. But there are ways of paraphrasing. There are ways of throwing in certain words. So when you're hearing on the phone, talking to somebody on the phone, and it's a long sentence, you do have to give a nod in between, as you may have noticed that you have to say, something like that, and then, you fill it. But I think we'll talk about it on Wednesday. Next.
Next question is from Mr. Irfan. What's the best way for developing a good body language?
Well, you have to learn, what the right body language is for the right location you're in, for the right culture you're in, okay? So you shouldn't have excessive body gestures or body, signs. You just have to have the required signs. And then if you can learn the right expressions, then, you will get it. It's, available, all over the place that you can learn, but you have to stick to your location, your culture, to have minimum barriers in having it effectively communicated. So you cannot have a strong expression when you're delivering a good news, and you cannot be having a sad face when you are delivering, an achievement to somebody. So these are the little things that you have to learn in having the right body language. It's required, but it shouldn't be excessive. Next.
Next question is, can you please give one more example on STAR?
STAR stands for situation, task, action, and a result. So if you're referring to what I said in the, few slides before that, that was just a situation that I made up how your weekend was. But if someone to ask you how your week was, then you would start out with the first day of the week, which is Monday, and say that when I was in my office early morning, I was given a task, okay? And then you would talk about the situation, wherever the settings were in the conference room. You talk about the task, and you have to say that I quickly took out my laptop and started working on the task, and I completed the PowerPoint presentation and I delivered it, which is the action. And then the presentation lasted for like 10 minutes and everyone liked it. That's the result. So as long as you incorporate STAR, your communication aspect is complete. Whether it gets delivered or not will depend on your other strategies. Done.
Okay. The next question is from Muhammad Amjad. How volume pitch should be controlled because I am unable to control this?
Well, you have to work on it. Some people have a very loud voice, which is a negative, which doesn't leave a good impression. So unless the person knows him very well, that he is being loud and he is loud by nature, then it wouldn't be matter. But if he's in a setting, if he's entering a classroom or a meeting and he's being very loud, then that is a very negative. So you have to record yourself and check, or have a partner who would check on it. But you need to have the right volume, because the high volume will look anxious and the low volume will be more impacting. So same way, you need to have the right pitch, and the right speed.
All right. So the next question is, does multitasking affect communication? Is paying complete attention while communicating very important, like on phone or on Zoom?
Yeah, it's very important. First of all, in our stress, we talked about why multitasking is not good for humans. It's good for computers to click the tab button and check. But remember, your brain can only focus on one thing at a time. So if you're looking at the computer and at the same time looking at your phone, then remember that your brain is processing what is on your computer through your vision. And it will stop processing that and then instantly move to the next screen. So you're giving a tremendous amount of burden, exercise to your brain by multitasking. So this is the theory behind multitasking. You should never. When it comes to English communication, you can never be a good listener if you're multitasking. Plus, it creates a barrier. So when you are listening to somebody, don't ever look at your phone. Don't ever look at the time. Don't ever do nothing. Even simple multitask will impact your ability to communicate and be an effective communicator. Next.
Next question is from Ms. Sushma. How to make face-to-face communication interactive for students?
Face-to-face communication interactive for students. I'm guessing you're a teacher, so yes. You need to come up with interactive games to be more, lively. These are known as icebreaker. So if it's a new session and you would like to be interactive, you would have to start out with a small talk, with a game, or with, a plan to do something, assign somebody something. So it's all about being interactive. It's very important. People are actionable, but they do not interact. So there is a difference between action and interaction. There are some very funny jokes on the internet that you can read what the difference between action and interaction is. But the point is to be interactive so that, you move on. It's more important than you teaching the subject that you have to be interactive. So a person opens up and talks to you. So check out the icebreakers that will help you in being interactive. All right, I think we're done because we want to leave a few minutes for the LMS aspect of it. For those of you who are having difficulty getting on, logging in or seeing the dashboard the way you want, please discuss it with Mr. Saeed, who is with us today. Okay. So I guess I'm done.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So I will request Mr. Saeed Saab to talk about the LMS, that is Learning Management System, for a few minutes before we move ahead to the closing session. Saeed,
thank you, Mehra. Thank you so much, Shah Saab, for your time. And one of the important aspect, of communication, what Shah Saab has really, talked about is the most important thing in communication is hearing what is not said. So that is where, exactly body language comes in. And I'm sure that, people will take advantage of this session. Yeah, coming to the learning management system that has been provided along with this webinars. I'm seeing a lot of queries coming in wherein people are asking like, we see that the course still says incomplete or continue, even though they have taken the course. One important aspect is that, I just wanted to mention that the course and the assessment can be taken n number of times. So even if you finish it once, so it would still say, continue. So don't worry, as long as you take your assessment well, okay, you will get your certificate. But having said that, please take the courses, please take all the slides in the courses if you want to, continue further. I would quickly, share my screen and then show you how do you actually, take the assessment and take the courses for people who have joined in for the first time. Okay, so you can just, sign up from the link that has been given in the chat box. And once you sign up, okay, you get, a username and a password. So you can just, take that username and the password, and then you can sign in. So I've already signed in with a demo user. So the moment you sign in, okay, you would get a dashboard. So this is how the dashboard would look like. And then right now there are 2 courses that have been uploaded. One is on the business writing, which will end tomorrow. So tomorrow is the last date for you to complete the course and the assessment, in the business writing. And then there is a second course on communication strategies that has been uploaded today. So, you can just click on begin from here, okay, if you want to get started. And then on the left hand side, okay, you will find the learning path wherein you would see all the study material here. First is the introduction, how many modules are there in this course. And then you have this e-learning course, which is the e-module what Shasa was mentioning about. So the e-module actually loads in over here, and then feel free to take, this e-learning course from here. And then there are certain worksheets available for your convenience. So we have uploaded them, worksheet 1, 2, and then there are action plans associated. There is a pre-assessment document for you, to analyze yourself, and there is a recommended reading list as well. So you can take this, worksheets, okay, as per your convenience. This is in PDF format. Okay, so you can just, download, you can just, go through it once it downloads. And then, you have the recommended reading list as well, wherein, Shah Saab has recommended certain reading material for your purpose. What are the books that you can, go through for this communication strategies. But for now, there is no assessment, associated with communication strategies. So if you take the course, that is more than enough for you to get the certificate. Now, having said that, for the business writing, those who have not completed yesterday, please, sign up and then finish it off. And then when you say continue over here for business writing, there is an assessment involved. There is an e-course and an assessment. So first there is an introduction here. So just go through that introduction, and then towards the end you will find assessment. So when you click on that assessment, okay, what you would see is there is 10 questions assessment that comes up. Take the assessment, and then you should be able to see your result right at the end of the assessment. Now, a few queries have come in wherein people are saying, how can we see our already attempted assessment results? For that, go to analytical reports, okay, and go to analytical reports, and there you will see a list of reports that comes in towards the left. Towards the bottom, you will see user assessment details. So just click on that user assessment details and select your assessment. So in this case, it is business writing, and when you click on search, you would see your results. So this user has not taken any assessment, so you would see the assessment name, how many times you've attempted, what is the maximum marks you have scored, and what is the minimum marks, and what was the last attempt score. So this is as easy as it is shown here. So please feel free to go through the LMS portal, and business assessment, business module will be available only till tomorrow. Tomorrow is the last date for you to finish off this, the course as well as the assessment for business module. Communication strategies, next session will be on Wednesday. So if we have more material coming in, we will upload that as well for your convenience. And one last thing I would like to talk before we end this session, that the username what you're giving, if it includes an uppercase, okay, please log in with that username as well. Okay, don't, if your first name is Muhammad, okay, if your email ID contains the word Muhammad, and if you're giving M as in uppercase, which is in capital letters, when you're signing in, please use uppercase itself. Otherwise, you will not be able to sign in. Okay, I think this is it. We will continue, inshallah, on Wednesday. Over to you, Mehra.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Said Saab, for this information. I'm very sure that it is very much clear to everyone how to log in and sign up to the LMS. Please don't miss this opportunity. I would also thank Mr. Shah Saab again for today's lecture on communication strategies. It was extremely important. It is extremely important for all of us to be a good communicator in order to express ourselves in almost all walks of our lives, don't we? So it was a very helpful session indeed. To all the participants, I would like to say that it is always very good to have you all on board. It is fantastic. We will again meet on Wednesday on 8th July for our next session. The topic will be the same, communication strategies, same time at 7:30 p.m. Attending these sessions will always benefit you in your career paths. AMP in association with Reed Academy and Swift e-learning services has organized these sessions for you all so let's not miss these opportunity to engage ourselves in our career building. In any point of time, if you want to join AMP, you can visit us at www.ampindia.org/joinamp. We request you to keep coming for these sessions. You can also spread the word about us and our sessions in your network. Keep yourself updated through our website, www.ampindia.org/fastwebtalks. Thank you. I'm Humaira Kabir, your host today, signing off now. Assalamu alaikum. Allah Hafiz, everyone.